Hey there, my name is Alex. I am the Silver Mont, and in this video we're going to be reviewing Genshin Impact. I reviewed the game back at launch, but Genshin is an ongoing game, so we'll take a look at it 1 year later. How does it hold up? Have they made significant improvements? Is it worth hopping into now as a new player? What if you played at launch and quit? Is it worth coming back? Well, let's get right to it. And we'll start with some of my issues from my original review. Have any of them been fixed? My main complaints back at launch were limited co-op. We could co-op in domains and dungeons, and for world bosses, but co-op exploration and quests aren't really a thing. That is still the case, unfortunately. It is something I would really like to see them adding in year 2 of the game's life. I see no issues with allowing us to explore, collect treasure and do puzzles in co-op. Just make it so when we pick up a treasure, it flags it as collected in our world as well. Quests might be a little harder to implement perhaps, but that could be a longer term fix. My other main concern was the Gacha system. I think Genshin's is restrictive, too much so, and I still think that is the case. They've improved the gacha in a few small ways, such as the weapon banner. Previously, if you wanted something on the weapon banner, you were entirely dependent on luck. You had something like a 50 or a 75% chance of your 5-star being a banner 5-star, but then you had a 50-50 chance between the two featured ones anyway, which resulted in some players pulling over and over and over and never getting what they wanted. The developers put in a system where you can guarantee the weapon you want on your 3rd 5-star pull on the banner, I believe. It's not perfect, but it's something. Overall, the gacha is restrictive, far too much so. I'm going to compare it with another game, Dissidia Final Fantasy, the gacha game on mobile. I am a free-to-play player in that game, and yet I've been able to get just about every single thing I want, almost. Now, sure, I'm quite lucky at times with my pulls in that game, but it's just a much better gacha system. Every pull gets you currency. Build up enough of that currency, and you can buy anything on the banner with it. So you can always plan out exactly how many pulls you will need to just buy what you want. No questions asked. And that's if you're unlucky. The game's also more generous with 3 pulls and so on. Now, I'm no businessman, clearly, and obviously Genshin is making obscene amounts of money, but at the end of the day, I think there's a lot nicer ways to monetize your players. Make them happy to support your game with money, or just do it because they're rich and they can throw $500 at a banner to, I don't know, max out a character's constellations. Genesis crystals are absurdly expensive. Spending $100 for like 40 pulls is absurd, in my opinion, and considering the characters aren't complete from pulling them once, but you need to pull them something like 6 times to max them out, yeah, they could be a lot more generous. For starters, letting players have 1 free pull every day would help. Genshin remains a game that is not friendly to free-to-play players. Back at launch, though, you could clear everything in the game with the starting characters. How about now? Well, some of the best characters are fairly easy to obtain, as they are 4 stars, and one of them is given out free if you clear the abyss up to a few floors, which isn't hard. But the game is definitely starting to introduce harder events and challenges that aren't as viable for free-to-play players, because of certain extremely powerful 5 stars being introduced, meaning the game has to be somewhat balanced around them. The power gap between a Kaya and a Ganyu, for example, they're both Ice DPS characters, but there's a pretty big difference between their potential damage. Character balance in general could be improved in Genshin. Some characters are just flat out kinda bad, and don't get the attention they deserve from the developers. Xinyan, for example, really needs a buff, which is a shame because I like Xinyan. On a more positive note, Genshin as an ongoing game has done a great job since launch. They've added 2 new areas, the Frigid Mountain of Dragonspine and the island nation of Inazuma. On top of that, the patch cycle has been consistent and events are frequent. This is great for people who play all the time, but if you're starting the game up now, you will have missed out on some of the time-sensitive events. The Meteor event with fish springs to mind, or the Summer Island event. We can only hope they rerun those in the future at some point for players who missed them. In terms of content though, We get an impressive amount in Genshin. The update schedule has been consistent, some events are definitely higher quality than others, but there feels like there's a continuous learning process happening here from the developers' standpoint, where events learn from the mistakes of past ones to constantly improve the new ones. Every few days there will be something new to do in Genshin, and every month or 2 months or so there will be a bigger batch of content, meaning you'll probably play the game in kind of bursts. When new content comes out, you will have hours of stuff to do, whereas once you've done all that, until the next content patch hits, well, you'll be doing shorter events and just hopping on to do daily things, which some people hate, some people enjoy. All in all, the game adds content frequently enough to keep it fresh and interesting. The characters can have fun gimmicks to play around with, but the gacha is still too restrictive in my opinion. They've done a decent job, and I hope they continue to improve going into the next year. That about does it for now though. If you were playing at launch and quit, well, 2.1's a good time to come back and have another look around. If you're thinking about getting into it now, well, you will have missed some events, but I think now is a good time as you can enjoy the quality of life updates. Just be aware that if you want characters from newer areas, you will have to progress through the game significantly in some cases before you can actually really use those characters because you won't be able to level them up until you reach the areas their materials are from. This is another thing the developers could adjust in the future. But yep, that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.